Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading Kazekage's Friend by Monrick Account. Chapter 2 Obligations. Gaara and Konoha's Sealmaster was occupied right away in the seal room with two Sealmaster assistants. That was guaranteed that Jiraiya didn't try to kill Gaara, Bucky, and a couple of Ambu, to make sure that any parties, Suna or otherwise, would not try to kill her sibling or interfere on the tense process of working in a faulty Jinchuuriki seal. She was worried, as she has been pretty much her entire life, but in a different context, and as occupied as she ever has been, of attending to the arrival of Konoha's Sealmaster and Gaara's friend, another Jinchuuriki. She avoided thinking about that part, because her hand wouldn't be able to be stopped trembling. Being maid of servant bringing everyone food from a very safety precaution and awkward dining experience. After bringing her guests to their room, she had to go to the Suna council. Nobody on the council liked her presence there. She was way too young and biased, as they could say. She barely had a voice or say, and knew her position inside the council was non-existent, much like Baki's assistant and unwilling spokesperson from the council to the Kazekage. Still, she was there and received the mission of shadowing Gaara's friend and reporting back to the council Konoha's real plans in bringing those people to Suna, and Naruto Uzumaki's real reason of befriending the Suna Jinchuuriki. She wasn't sure if they knew Naruto's status and wasn't willing to tell them. Their hatred and uncertainty about Gaara's position as Kazekage was so obvious. They didn't try to hide it, not in her presence at least, and barely made an effort in her little brother's presence, Kazekage or not. It was infuriating. They would never be as mutinous in her late father's ruling. She was sure of that. It was a struggle to hear all the ways her village hated her little brother, how she had to somehow be the one to keep him peaceful. It was her job to manage the village, her family, and the council all at once, and she constantly felt close to breaking down in tremors if she allowed herself to stop. So she didn't. She could count on Kankuro most of the time, so she did that as well. She and Kankuro kept switching for shadowing Baki in the council, and to deal with the councils and older ninjas and Ambu that could not be trusted around Gaara. For her, the Sealmaster's presence was a miracle in some way. A lot of Gaara's anger came from that monster and father's interference. Not only that, but the blonde kid. Meeting Naruto Uzumaki at the gate and seeing how her younger brother relaxed. Things that she never thought would happen in the first place, and smile and talk as a normal kid, was strange. Later that night, she had got Kankuro to allow her to hug him, and shivered for hours, trying not to feel shame for her weakness, and was so glad for that. Then Kankuro had told her about Naruto having some jutsu that made him a girl, and it being training. That's when she was shivering all over again, but for other completely different reasons, and made her go up the mountain walls to a training camp and cause some sandstorms and destroy some rocks. Tamari has obligations to Suna and to her family. By the time morning the next day, she found her little brother's friend alone sitting around the greenhouse and approached him with the same determination and steadiness she took her missions. "Good morning, Uzumaki-kan," she greets the boy in a girl body that turns to her and smiles. "Good morning, Temari." Temari couldn't see what her brother saw, but that was because Naruto was wearing that orange jumpsuit again. It was clearly not made for wind climate, even if the colors did a better job blending in with the sand dunes than it ever did around the bright green of fire. The kid would have ended up having heat stroke in it. "You still didn't see much of Suna, right? How about we find something else for you to wear that will protect you from the sun and explore a little bit?" She tries, keeping her voice calm, even when that never seemed to work to appeal Gaara for much of their childhood. It always made it worse. And Naruto was a loud kid and didn't seem to need to be careful flirting as Gaara. Still, it did seem to work well enough. "All right, I don't have that much money, though," he exclaimed, laughing bashfully. "Will that be a problem?" "Will that be a problem?" He spoke next, timid, and more unsure than his disposition gave an impression of. The kid was left alone. Her mind unhelpfully remembered her. Naruto Uzumaki was alone, despite the Suna Anbu trailing him in the distance, without any real guide or goal. Wind had its own dialect, and Suna was a much less visited village than Konoha was. Way less people knew common around here, so it wasn't like Naruto could explore by himself. In Konoha, Temari and her brother and Baki had an older Konoha Chunin as a guide and shadow. Naruto came with the Seal Master and nobody else to visit Gaara, so when both would be occupied for what she believed to be at least a full week, who was supposed to look after him? Temari. That's whom, and that was by the council's orders. In surveillance, that is. Gaara smiled to this kid. Kankuro was worried. Temari has an obligation to her family. She assures him that no, it will not be a problem, and the kid laughs loudly again, all insecurity gone, and starts to go in a string of menial talk, mostly pointing out things around them and being borderline disrespectful with some comments about how he didn't believe Suna could have such a pretty greenhouse, and then how wind dialect was weird, and why they couldn't talk the same way that fire did in their dialect. And Temari started to hold back her urge to hit him, glad that Kankuro was not around because he would hit that blonde idiot to a pulp. Really, had the kid have no sense of diplomacy or discretion at all? Luckily, when they started walking on the busy market streets, the kid shifted to openly admiring everything. Nee, Temari-san, look, I've never seen so many spices like this. It's so colorful, believe it. Are those fabric rolls? I've never seen so much fabric. Wow, it's so vibrant. Whoa, are those puppets? They look so much like humans. Creepy. Temari just wished that the kid would be quieter about his enthusiasm, really. Their walking was going slower now, with the kid running from store to store and taking his time looking through and being amazed by everything every single time. That part was cute, at least. Temari did find the lack of street vendors and marketplace in Konoha wild. The most interesting thing one could see was a clothing shop, and even then it was somewhat lacking. And the less she talked about the weapon shop, the better. The tragedy, the lack of craftsmanship and of personality. Everyone had the same weapon as everyone else, and it was all so flimsy. Well, they were already there, and the kid did need some better clothes. It was best to get it done with that soon. "Uzumaki-kan," she called, stopping beside him in one of the clothing vendors that she liked to buy herself. Choose one fabric. We need to do a deal for you. She herself looked through some of the fabric options, holding a grimace. There has been less and less of those last year. She remembers being a little girl and in awe with how many options there was, how many colors and prints. She remembered being young and her mother bringing her to study the symbolism of the ornaments in their clothing. Suna's form of seal mastery shown in ki and ulgas. There was a time long ago that the ninjas of the desert held as much sealing knowledge as those lost at the sea. She knew. Those of the desert knew better of surviving in secrecy than those of the sea, Mother told her. Away from father, the desert was harsh and unforgiving. Surviving was never a guarantee. Those of the desert knew to keep walking, knew to keep quiet, and to hear the wind. When the villages started to form, when those who had powerful knowledge for millennia started to have names and settlements, they turned to prey. Suna had so little seal masters after the wars, killed, hidden away, back to their nomadic secrecy. Father had little appreciation to the arts that were not war-driven, and even less regarding sealing. Too soft, he sneers. Weak. Suna's sealing told stories with its symbolism, a form of art, a prayer and a protection, Mother told her. A dying art these days. Father hated most forms of art in favor of military pursuit. Suna thrives in its craftsmanship, the tangible and intangible arts, beyond puppetry, poison, and metallurgy. Few of the council, picked and chosen in war times, remember that, Mother told her. Uzumaki Naruto had quieted down, passing his fingers through the soft fabric and elegant prints again and again, face moving in some kind of desolated wonder. Suna was not the only one who has lost the sacred knowledge, she thought. Then it strikes Tamari. The kid doesn't know where he's from. Her anger and despise for Konoha bruise again inside her, and threatens to bring her to unsteadiness. She holds it hostage, and lets it simmer away from the forethought of her mind, somewhere deeper, and focuses on the now, as Naruto picks on iridescent orange-pink Dupani fabric that he can't seem to be able to stop touching and look in awe. Is that one fine, Damari-san? He asks, with a quiet voice, way too soft for such a loud kid. The fabric was loud, especially for a ninja, but the bright orange jumpsuit, or whatever he wore normally, wasn't any better. And it was the same strength as ninja silk as our own clothes. Yes, Uzumaki-kan, I'll talk with Naran-san. Find something that you can wear for now, and come to take your measurements, okay? Temari picks a fabric for herself, one with the extensive complex uglas that she can feel the chakra sewn into. Tamari has obligation to her family. Tamari has obligation to Suna. Father wasn't alive anymore. Naran-san is one of the last who understood Suna's ancestral stealing technique, enough to put on the fabric she weaves together. Naran-san does not have mastery, only the little knowledge passed before Naran's partner was killed by the White Fang. Naran kept some of the partner's scrolls, but that knowledge had been passed orally to Naran-san's partner before that, and Naran-san could never reach mastery. Still, Naran-san was the one who knew the most these days of the technique, and someone that Tamari could trust. After that, the tour takes a good amount of the day. They take a break to eat, and Naruto goes right back to wanting to know about everything, including places that Tamari herself barely knew or goes to. The kid wants to visit pleasure houses in a girl's body with clearly woman-preferred cut of his new deal dress. At least this one was not as vibrant as the one that Nara-san was making, but a plain deep red one. Tamari didn't think that otherwise both would have very unpleasant and dangerous time. Not that they were going even close to pleasure houses now. Teenagers. No sense of danger and no thought on their hollow heads beyond whatever the present hormones dictate. But Tamari-san, I go to those places all the time, he insists. It's fun, you know. There's food and dance and music and a lot of soft spots. Why was this kid always so loud? And it's not like you need to do anything, you know. You can just watch and talk with the girls. We are not going. As like she would be sitting around talking while the kid does whatever in a fucking pleasure house. If you want so bad to be entertained, then go to the training sites, and I'll give you something to pay attention about. Tamari hasn't gotten a chance to train all day, and she was starting to get the itch of needing to unwind that only a good spar could really give her. Not that she was expecting to receive a good spar against a kid. She was there for his fights, and knew for sure she would win in the first 10 seconds, and that was no fun. Maybe she could stretch a little longer with whatever new things he'd learned since, or with his stamina, but still not really a challenge. It would be good though to be able to personally check his level, and what having Konoha's great steel master for a teacher meant. Really? You want to train with me? Yes, let's go! Naruto yells, pulling her along before noticing that he didn't know where the training camp in Suna was, and grins sheepishly. Where are we meant to go again? Tamari sighs. Stepping to the left, she blasts her Kyoto Sensu on 1 star, and Naruto is sent flying once again. A clone again. Running, Tamari used her fan to burst her jump close to it while dodging diagonally. Another Naruto with that ball of chakra technique. She used the guard of Kyoto Sensu to hit his back and send him to the hard-packed terrain of the training site. It was yet another clone. This was the 26th she destroyed. 26th. Naruto's stamina was greater than she expected, and they were going at it for 3 minutes of non-stop attacks. Tamari could step away easily enough, and the kid didn't seem to know anything beyond basic kunai and shuriken work, basic taijutsu, and that blasted chakra jutsu, the same that he knew at the exam. Tamari was simultaneously disappointed and surprised. Right, left, up. Always up with that kid, really. The guard hits, another series of smoke clouds, 3 at once this time. Tamari didn't get to train much mass close combat. It was good for her reflexes. Up again. She blocked it, and decided to kick out the next projectile. A loud boom, and pink sparkly clouds covered her. It was not her best idea. Also, that shit smell was strong. A nauseating flower-cheap perfume that clogged her nose and went up to her head. A kick on her back sends her flying. Tamari snarled, turning the direction of the attacker on her landing, using her fan to balance. Fuck, she was busy with that smell, and she couldn't fucking open her eyes without seeing pink. Her eyes didn't seem to be able to stop watering either. The brat laughed, the fucker. But Tamari trained intensely her whole life, knew the terrain like the back of her hand, and could very well localize Naruto without her vision or smell. The headache sucked, but it was doable. Her stance was wide and willed herself to stay firm in her spot. She just needed to open her fan and a Cyclone Scythe Jutsu will clean that and whatever how many clones he still had in hiding. A change in the wind, and she holds up the fan to block it, and then again, and her balance was still fucked up. She can't move, and the close attacks keeps coming, all around her. It's not one side at a time, but all sides at once. She moves and spins her fan over herself, and she hears a puff again, but it doesn't stop. Snarling, she does her best to concentrate her chakra sensing. She finds a window and leaps back and jumps again, because if not, she would have fallen again and again, because Naruto is right there overwhelming her again. But her balance is back, and the smell is dissipating. She just needs another one so she can firm herself, and she missteps and fucking falls in a sand sinkhole into a net. She shrieked while falling. Her blood boiled as Naruto started laughing obnoxiously again as she shifted ready to get out, because she would be damned if a fucking net and a sinkhole would stop her. She glimpses a ceiling paper. Shit. Boom! The explosion didn't stop. It stacked one on top of another and kept activating each other. It was not intense enough to knock her out or cause severe damage, but it would, and still meant that sand kept pouring over her and threatened to suffocate her. "Oh wait, fuck, Tamari-san!" Naruto yelled, stopping laughing gasp. A blonde blur over the sand that kept pouring. With her arms close to her body and kunai in her mouth, she goes through Doton Jutsu, cuts the net, and swims out of the sinkhole, coughing. Fuck, that hurts. "Tamari-san, you okay?" the brat asks, looking worried at her, shifting foot to foot. Tamari glances up at him, still coughing, and shunshes behind him, the kunai she was holding in the back of his neck. He gulps. "Finish your attacks when your opponent is vulnerable instead of standing around," she lectures, pressing a little more of the kunai, just enough for the shallowest cuts, just enough to bleed, and jumps back to give him space. "I win," she affirms, as expected. Her throat is hoarse, her mouth and eyes dry, and Tamari is sure she'll be finding that damn glitter for months to come. She looked at Naruto. He was rubbing the blood off his neck with a grimace. It already had healed, she notices. "You did fight well, lasted more than I thought you would, and almost win. In a real fight, he would have won." Naruto beamed at her, light as the sun, wide grin, and closed eyes, whiskers stretching in self-satisfaction. She grins back, helpless, somehow feeling pride. Still, without Naruto's ingenuity, with his traps and brute stamina, he wouldn't have gotten as close as he did, and there was nothing show of new in his form, anywhere, and that was worrisome. It should not be her place as a foreign ninja, as a shadow there to spy the kid, way more than she was to be a friend of her brother's friend. As someone already extremely occupied by her responsibility that had nothing to do with the kid and Konoha's lacking, it should not be her place to teach a kid about all the things he clearly didn't know about. Tamari thought if part of the curse of being a Jinchuuriki would be their village always failing the Jinchuurikis. Does people do not get it? How dangerous a timing bomb that was. Those kids were only getting closer and closer to setting off inside their own village on the people who failed them. Maybe it was because the people responsible for the Jinchuurikis was not said Jinchuuriki's sister. It wasn't her place. "How far did you get in your own chakra nature training?" she asked anyway. "My chakra nature?" Naruto asked back, blinking. Tamari hoped that the confusion was related to some linguistic confusion, that maybe fire and wind simply had different terminology, even though most of the basic ninja nomenclature was kept the same for the sake of diplomatic missions. Chakra is chakra, isn't it? The kid continues, unsure, a hand going to hug his stomach and shifting his gaze. Which Tamari didn't want to know, actually. Some things were better not known, both for her sanity and Naruto's sake. It truly wasn't her place. She sighs and exclaims a basic academy concept that she herself knew since she was 5. Then, because the kid didn't look like to be absorbing it, showed him her own techniques with the Kyude Sensu, the gust of wind coming easy as ever, and the cracks on the sand with her Dotan nature, and the hot breath straining her limits. I can't do anything with water or lightning nature, for you can use all types, much less master it. In Konoha, it's more common to have a fire and earth nature. It's possible that your nature type is one of those, or the two of them. Whoa! Oh, that bastard! He has lightning and fire! Naruto shouts. He must be talking about the last Uchiha. After the first outburst, it's very clear how much the kid still hurts about everything going on about the last Uchiha. Even with how low Naruto was when she first met him by the greenhouse, it was the first time that look of pure sorrow came over the kid. A quiet heaviness that was unpleasant to see after spending the day with his usual loud and obnoxious self. We can check your chakra nature now, Tamari continues, moving the subject back to the training. It was better than wallowing, after all. But I can teach the one I used to get at the sinkhole, if you're going to go around creating them. Naruto smiles cockily, as expected. It was not as bright as his smiles earlier. Between Tamari's depleting chakra and Naruto's too big reserve, it was a disaster. Hey fishies! I hope you enjoyed this video. This is chapter 2 by modern account in the second part of the series, so it's a good one. I didn't manage to do a end of chapter debrief because I was rushing the recording to edit and stuff, so I didn't have time for that. Plus I was about to get interrupted, so I just want to quickly clicked off the recording and quickly did what I needed to do. Anyway, how do you like the world building in this series? Because the world building is rich. Like, rich. It's so good, and I love the world. I think that's one of the main highlights for me, but also just because of the depth of character. I mean, the sentence structure and the wording could do some work because it was hard for me to follow along at first, and it took me a while and to autocorrect all the mistakes. But either way, it was still a good chapter and still deserve your kudos. So please send the kudos to the author, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.